Can they be stopped? Lawmakers in Ohio want to try something new. They're proposing legislation that would require violent sex offenders and child predators to place fluorescent green license plates on their cars. The bill is called Kristen's Law after a 14-year-old girl who was raped and killed by a convicted sex offender. She got into his car. I spoke with State Senator Kevin Coughlin, who introduced the bill, and behavioral scientist Ken Lanning earlier tonight. Senator Coughlin, you think this legislation is going to protect communities. Are you concerned that people will, target these vehicles, vandalize these cars, or attack the people inside?
No, I'm not, because we don't have any data that would suggest that that's going to happen. It's been over a decade since we've been telling people exactly where sex offenders live in the state of Ohio, publishing their pictures and their crimes and their addresses on the internet and spreading it throughout the community, and we haven't seen that. And it's been a few years since we've had yellow license plates in our state on the cars of repeat drunk drivers, and we haven't seen vigilantism there. People really don't want to take the law into their own hands. That's a crime in and of itself, but what they do want is information so that they can make decisions for themselves and their own safety.
And the purpose of the colored license plates, Senator, is it partially embarrassment? Is it just simply to notify people?
Well, it's one part deterrent, but it's mostly notification. If we can stop a child from accepting a ride, if we can be able to find a sex offender who is on the prowl looking over a schoolyard or a playground, maybe in violation of their release, if it helps us identify that offender, then it's worth doing.
Ken, do you think this will protect communities?
Well, I don't know. What I would really like to see is that I believe that in a free society, any legislature can pass constitutional laws to address the problem, but hopefully those laws would be passed after careful and objective study of the problem. What is the nature of the problem? What do you hope to address, and how you hope this particular legislation is going to address and solve the problem? I do agree that there have been minor problems with vigilantism. It's not a huge issue, but I think that assaulting a car is a little bit easier than assaulting an individual. But that's a minor point. I think we need to consider as to who is going to get these license plates and what do we hope to achieve by having these license plates on the car.
Senator, is there any evidence that this works?
Well, we would be the first state to do it. And what I want to make clear is that it isn't open to all sex offenders. We're not after the low-grade sex offenders here, the public urinators or the 21-year-old who dates the 16-year-old and ends up with a sex offense on their record. We're after violent sex offenders who rape, commit sexual battery, murder, aggravated murder, kidnapping with a sexual motivation, and prey on our children. Those are the kind of offenders we're after, and we think really it's about giving people another tool in the tool chest so that they have information on the whereabouts of these offenders in our neighborhoods.
Ken, does that distinction make sense to you?
No, it doesn't. What we have to understand is that the major distinction between the sexual victimization of adults and the sexual victimization of children is one simple word: consent. With adults, in order for it to be a sex crime, you pretty much have to have lack of consent and violence. You can have criminal sexual assault of children without there being any violence. And because an offender happens to groom and manipulate and seduce a child who cooperates, I don't use the word consent, but cooperates in their victimization, those individuals, in my opinion, can be very dangerous. They are the most persistent and prolific of all known child molesters. And to simply exclude individuals who happen to groom and seduce adolescent children doesn't make any sense to me.
Senator, what's to stop a predator from putting the car in his wife's name or his brother's name and thereby skirting the law? Or if the car is in his name and his son is driving it, or his daughter or his wife, do you worry about people seeing the license plate and assuming that person is a predator?
Well, it doesn't matter if the car is registered in the offender's name. It's whatever vehicle the offender operates. So the offender, you can have multiple cars in a family that are registered in the offender's name, and one of them would have to have the green plate if that's the one that the individual is going to drive. There's also, I understand that there are people who might have financial hardships and have only one car, and we do provide for rentals here. Although if you commit a crime, a sex crime, while operating a rental vehicle, it's going to be an automatic 5 years added onto your sentence. But we understand that there will be some hardships for some families, but most families have more than one car, and not every car in the family will have to have the green plate.
Senator Coughlin, appreciate your perspective, and Ken Lanning as well. Thank you very much, guys. Interesting discussion. A look at tonight's other headlines ahead, plus the latest